Today, we are going to learn about adding and subtracting fractions when our denominators are not the same, or unlike denominators. And Rachel is here to help me out with that. Now, Rachel, you and I already know how to add fractions when the number on the bottom or the denominator is the same, right?
Yes.
Just like right here, 2 over 7 plus 1 over 7. Our denominators are the same, so we just keep them the same and just add the numerators. 2 plus 1 is?
3.
Excellent. 3 over 7. Now, let's see what happens when the denominators are not the same. 1/4 minus 1/6. We know how to do it when they're the same, so let's just make the denominators the same, right?
Yep.
The best way to do that is by first finding the multiples of both the 4 and the 6. The multiples of 4 are 4 times 1 is?
4.
4. 4 times 2 is 8. 12, 16, 20, 24, and we could go on and on forever. Let's do the same thing for 6. 6 times 1 is?
6.
6 times 2 is?
12.
Excellent. 18, 24, and so on. Now what we want to find is our least common denominator, or the least common multiple of 4 and 6. That number is right here. 12, right?
Yep.
That's the smallest multiple that both of them have in common. Hence the name, least common multiple. In order to get this 12 here, I multiplied 4 times 3. And I multiplied my 6 times?
2.
Excellent. To get this 12. So now let's go up here. We're going to convert each of these fractions into an equivalent fraction that is worth the same amount, but instead of a 4 or a 6 on the bottom, it has a 12 on the bottom as its denominator. So again, we multiplied 4 times 3. Now we know that anything we do to the bottom of a fraction, we got to do to the top of a fraction to keep it equal. So we're going to multiply the 1 times 3 as well. And that equals 1 times 3 is 3, 4 times 3 is 12. So our original fraction 1/4 is equivalent to 3/12. Let's do the same thing for 1/6. Let's convert that into twelfths. We multiply this time both the top and the bottom by 2, giving us 2 over
12.
Thank you, Rachel. So now our original problem, another way to write it is 3 over 12 minus 2 over 12. Are our denominators the same?
Yep.
You bet. They are exactly the same, so they're going to stay the same. 12. And now we just subtract our numerators. 3 minus 2?
1.
Perfect. The answer is 1 over 12. Now let's move on. Now let's do an addition problem. We've got 2/5 and 7/10. Are our denominators the same?
No.
No. We've got a 5 and a 10, but we want them to be the same, don't we?
Yes.
So we go through the same steps. First, find the multiples of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20. We could go on and on until we're blue in the face, but we won't. Now let's start listing multiples of 10. 10. Well, let's stop right there. We've got a 10 here and a 10 there. So 10 is our least common denominator. So we're not going to do anything to 7/10 because it's already over 10. And we're just going to convert 2/5 into an equivalent fraction that has a 10 on the bottom. We do that by multiplying the 5 times what to get 10?
2.
Perfect. And once again, we got to do the same thing to the top of the fraction, which makes that equal 2 times 2 is 4, 5 times 2 is 10. Now 4/10 plus 7/10, that's easier to do. We know that we're going to have a 10 on the bottom, and we just add our numerators, 4 plus 7, which
11.
is... Rachel is doing very well today. 11 over 10. Excellent. That's the correct answer. Now, can we go a little bit further with this?
Yes.
What can we do?
We can turn them around.
Yeah, we can simplify our fraction. Right here, we've got what I like to call a top-heavy fraction. And what do top-heavy fractions do? They fall over. So we've got fractions, as we know, are parts over the whole. Our part, in this case, is bigger than the whole. So let's turn that into a mixed number, a whole number plus a fraction. How many 10s are there in 11?
1.
Exactly. 1 whole number. With how many left over after we take out that original 10?
1.
1 left over. 1 over 10. So 11/10 equals 1 and 1/10. And we just simplified a fraction. Anytime you have an improper fraction, you want to be sure to simplify. Now, this is important. Let's always remember that we don't like dealing with big numbers, especially when it comes to fractions. So let's simplify whenever we can. Let's pretend we did a math problem and the answer was 4 over 10. Now I know that both of those numbers are even, right?
Yep.
Which means that 2 goes into both of them. So let's divide out that 2 and make things easier on ourselves. We'll simplify or reduce this fraction. We divide out a 2 from each one, and we get 2 over 5. Because 4 divided by 2 is 2, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Therefore, 4/10 equals 2/5. And we can't reduce it anymore because 2 and 5 are prime numbers. You can't get any smaller than a prime number. Another way to look at reducing a fraction is like this. 4/10, we can also break it down into the factors, or the things that multiply together to create that number. So 2 times 2, that equals 4. And 5 times 2, that equals 10. We just factored those numbers. Now once we factor the numbers, we look for any numbers they have in common. If I see a number on the top and the bottom of a fraction, I can cross it right out. And I love crossing out numbers. So I'm going to cross out that 2, and I'm going to cross out that 2, leaving me with
2 over 5.
Thank you so much, Rachel. 2 over 5. So that's basically all there is to it. Now you know how to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Just remember to find the least common denominator first, convert your fractions so that the denominators are the same, and then just add and subtract as we've done before. Go to it and get ahead.